This episode is brought to you by State Farm. From your morning podcast to your afternoon playlist, State Farm knows you personalize your entire day, and that's why State Farm helps you personalize your insurance with the State Farm Personal Price Plan. It offers coverage options that help protect what you care about most at an affordable price just for you. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices vary by state. Options selected by customer. Availability and eligibility may vary.
So good, so good, so good.
Easter deals starting at just $25 are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. And that means tons of fresh reasons to rack.
They've got the best gifts.
Because I always find something amazing.
Save on Easter finds from Kate Spade New York, Calvin Klein, MAC Cosmetics, and more. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Business taxes. Was stressing about all the time and all the money you spent on your taxes.
This is my bill?
Now Business Taxes is a TurboTax small business expert who does your taxes for you and offers year-round advice at no additional cost, so you can keep more money in your business. Now this is taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on turbotax.com/business. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service.
It's really cool.
Bonjour, hello, and welcome to the Rosbiff Rugby Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things French rugby, the top 14, Pro de National, French national team, the brilliant towns, restaurants, bars, cities, people, fans, and all of the amazing things that make French rugby so bloody brilliant. And to digest a rare double week of international and top 14 action, as ever, is Rob, who has gone incognito on the hat, Grenoble on the jumper. It's quite a nice bit of kit, that, isn't it, the Grenoble one?
Yeah, I think you once said it was your favourite of the various bits of stash. And it's a Stade Toulousain hat. What links these two clubs, Richard? Quick question. See if you're on your toes.
Oh, that's too quick for me.
They're both top of the league.
Very good. That was much. I thought, I'll be honest, mate,
it was much more obvious than some of the.
I thought it was going to be, I don't know, their like founding chairman or something was we were like cousins.
Francis of Assisi.
How was your weekend? I'm assuming slightly less eventful than the week before, but I don't.
Yeah.
Want to,
yeah, I was actually in Oxford on Friday night, so I watched the game. I was being taken for a belated birthday dinner by my sister after our nephew's wedding on Thursday near Oxford, High Wycombe sort of area, Maidenhead sort of area, so not miles from Oxford. But yeah, it was very nice. And I watched the France game at about 1 a.m. With a nice bottle of red. But yeah, very nice.
Oh,
how about you?
Yeah, it was good. It was much the same. No weddings or birthday surprises, but pretty uneventful, mate. Just sort of regathering, getting life back in order after a slightly frenetic weekend and week before. But we've got a big weekend coming up, haven't we, Richard? Well, supposedly, yeah. Do you want to explain this weekend, the premise of this weekend? It is completely un-Rosbiff French rugby related. That's what you think, Richard. So, actually, you set it up, but years ago we set up a kind of annual trip around December time. So I think this is the earliest it's ever been. Is snuck into November, but we do a weekend away, as many of our kind of WhatsApp group of uni boys as possible. And the premise is you have to have a sporting event in there to kind of give a focal point, so it doesn't just become sitting in O'Neill's or another Irish bar for 48 hours. And the person organising it is allowed a deputy, and they are the only two people that know where they're going or what the plan is. This year, I am in charge for the first time in a long time. The last time I was properly in charge, I got hammered for it because I took us to Glasgow for Glasgow versus La Rochelle, which, great game. La Rochelle fans brought the energy, but it was probably the coldest I've ever been. And I don't think I was the only one. It's the worst conditions I've ever seen rugby played in, and it was an artificial pitch. Like,
yeah, but how good was the Crabbies?
Yeah, when the only solace, the only thing to warm you up within like a 5 mile radius is like a room temperature Crabbies, you've got problems. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So Richard thinks, so you think there won't be any French rugby involved? Well, we'll see, won't we?
This would be you can't possibly hijack 2 trips in a year. One, the stag do you a best man for. Oh, it's Bordeaux Quins, is it? You the same. Homer's bowling ball is out in full force.
I've been trying to joke with people that we're going to Tbilisi for Van's first ever European game away at Black Lion, but I've realised that's actually next weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, that probably would be quite cold as well, I would have thought.
Yeah, I didn't quite fancy the 15-hour flight for a rugby game, but yeah.
All right. Well, the last of the big international rugby games, or the last weekend of big international rugby, has just been and gone. It's sort of flicked by in the blink of an eye, really. But France beat Argentina.
It does feel like that way for France, doesn't it?
I feel like slightly short change, but France beat Argentina 37-23, which is pretty good going. I think Argentina have played some really decent rugby of late, although we're fairly comfortably beaten here, I'd suggest. Yeah, mate, initial thoughts from your watching it on your phone at 1 a.m. with a bottle of red or whatever it was.
Basically, everything I said pre-game in my preview was completely wrong. So I said it was going to be spicy after the summer tour. It wasn't really. I said Thomas Gageot was rubbish at scrummaging, and turned out he was actually all right as long as he was scrummaging. As long as he was scrummaging against Georges-Henri Colomb. I said Wankers Malia was secretly one of the best players in the world. He had a bit of a stinker. And I said Argentina would be fresher because they had a 7-day turnaround as opposed to France's 6-day turnaround. And the fact they played New Zealand, and they looked absolutely cooked, didn't they? Really, they just looked...
Yeah, they were quite leggy, weren't they?
I think we said before, Argentina they are still a kind of will they, won't they sort of team. Like, you just don't know where they're going to turn up, and it just wasn't their day. They were way off the pace, I thought.
Yeah, there was a little period in the second half where about 15 minutes, sort of middle of the second half, where they looked really good. Like, it did start to click, and I thought they looked quite incisive then, and they got a bit of sort of forward. Maybe not dominance, but at least a little bit of momentum up front, I think, particularly after Antonio went off for France. But yeah, it was a little bit, it was entertaining, but it's probably not quite the spectacle I'd hoped for. The Stade de France pyrotechnics next man is definitely due a pay rise. Like, that's two on the spin he's produced, or she's produced the goods. It was pretty cool. France, any real standouts for you?
I mean, it was quite a similar bunch of players that played. I thought Olivon was brilliant. Olivon was the official man of the match.
Yeah.
I thought he was absolutely fantastic. Biel Beret was an absolute game changer again, like, in the truest sense of the word. And unless you want to, you can be a real badger about it. But I think, people talk about the unseen work, but I actually think the Francois Cross hitting rucks, he hits so many that you can't not see it. I imagine if you were on his teammate, you would absolutely love playing with him. He just does so much around the park that is just so effective.
Interesting. I'm not sure we agree on that eye to eye. Not on this occasion. I don't disagree with the work rate bit. I thought he looked a little bit underpowered in the carry, and I think he got shrugged off a few times defensively as well. Now, Francois Cross does have a fairly serious body of work to suggest that he's probably got more credit in the bank than most, but yeah,
I'm just talking about hitting rucks, mate. He just hits so many rucks.
Well, he does do
and
that.
And gives them so much quick ball. He's just such a good support player.
Like Exeter standpoint, like Yanis Kirsten a few years back, averaging 60 rucks a game,
but just less of a donkey, yeah.
And with bright red hair, so you can see it all.
I thought Ramos was brilliant again. Just his range of kicking, his range of passing. He looked so in control. His goal kicking is fantastic. Brilliant all-round player, and we'll kind of come on to where France are at the end of this series. I think the worry also in this game, I mentioned it, the fact that Georges-Henri Colombe basically got cooked every time he scrummaged against Thomas Gageot is actually quite a big concern, given that we kind of came into this autumn saying that we thought he perhaps had the edge on the scrummaging over Tavita Tatafu, and Tatafu had the edge around the park. The fact that Colombe has struggled in 2 games is a little bit of a worry, because there was a few mentions that it was potentially Winnie Atonio's last ever game, which I hadn't seen anything on that. But he is obviously just a cut above in terms of the scrummaging elements of tight head at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think, I mean, Colombe's still quite young at international, or quite callow at international level, isn't he?
He's only got like 5 caps or something, hasn't he?
But I can't think of many games like the internationals he's played, or big, we're talking like high profile club games. I don't think I've ever seen him get dusted at scrum time. And last week, Tamati Williams gave him like a proper going over, and maybe it was a little bit less pronounced this time, but he still definitely came out second best. And I just want to, like, Flatman on commentary was talking about Antonio, and he spoke like Antonio was not a big, well, he was big, but he wasn't a dominant scrummager coming through into international rugby for quite some time. And I wonder if there's just a bit of game tape, bit of like little bit of experience required. I'm not sure. I know nothing about being a prop, but I'm with you. I wasn't expecting to get diced up quite as much as or quite as frequently as he had done, particularly when you got Meafu behind you as well.
Yeah, they do say that props age or develop later. But I remember that famous 100-minute game, France v Wales. He was involved in that, and they were trying to get him off, weren't they? They were trying to tell him that he had an HIA so they could get Slimani back on. It was Antonio. Oh,
Antonio, yeah. Sorry, I was concerned.
So that was kind of the state of his scrummaging back then. So you can develop, especially. I mean, we've seen it with other guys. The one that comes to my mind is, well, other than Antonio, is Thomas Francis. Like, you've got to have some raw materials to be able to be an international class tight head in the first place. Like, you can't be, I don't know, Francois Cross's shape and be an international tight head. Like, it's just not going to happen. You've got to have the raw ingredients.
140 kilos of ingredients. Give us a grading then. That's, as you say, it's gone by really quickly for France. The Japan game was a bit meh, understandably. Absolute all-timer against the All Blacks, obviously, because we were in the ground, and then fairly comfortable. So give me what would it have said on Rob's GCSE report?
I am going to go B+. I'm tempted to go B. I'll go B.
Negative.
Yeah.
I was going between a B+. This is sort of American parlance, isn't it? Plus or minus. Or an A-. I think I'll stick with probably B+.
A-?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I think they have, look at the last 2 games, they've beaten 2 very good international sides, with one very comfortably, one without having a huge amount of the ball, both of them without their star man and the best player in the world having the impact, I'd say, we're used to seeing him have on games, which bodes fantastically. And I think it probably is the B+, because I think there are still, we'll go into this in a moment, a couple of, if not issues, then question marks. But I think there've been some really good, this not that Tomo Ramos is a discovery, but I think just brings for a bloke I think everyone sees as a bit sort of hot-headed and mercurial from time to time. He seems to bring a real calm, I think, to France. Yeah, they're looking good. The other thing I think they have been good at, and it's not, I don't think the backline's really clicked, but they've been quite incisive and pretty ruthless off like turnover ball and when they get their opportunities, which bodes very, very well in the sort of way that South Africa have been over the last couple of years. And I think that's a great asset to have. Yeah, Tell me why the B, whatever it was, the E- or the C+ or.
Well, just to pick you up on that, like I think Austin Healy said on commentary at the end, like they've become very hard to beat, which is, an intangible quality that is quite, is a good sign. Yeah. I'm going B, certainly in the Bs, B+, potentially B-, B, normal B. Scrum and line out. I think, would be one of the things.
Yeah.
I think the line out, Malvaca did start to look a bit iffy. I do still think he's the better option ahead of Marchand. I think Marchand at the moment looks like he's trying too hard. It looks like he's trying to be Malvaca. Like, it's like when you have a breakup and you see a guy that your ex is hanging out with, and you suddenly start trying to kind of pick up on the things that he does or the things he's into, and or style yourself the way that he does. I think he's seen Malvaca do this all court, could play any position on the pitch type thing, and he's kind of like trying to become that, and he should just be Julian Marchand, just a big bloke that's brilliant around the fringes of rucks and mauls and hits his man, a good scrummager.
There are so many jokes I want to make about emulating your ex's new partner, but I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna avoid the bait. I get you.
But the point of that was that I think Malvaca is still the better option. I think they just need a bit more work at the line out. I don't quite know what went wrong, because it's obviously basically a Toulouse line out as well. So
maybe on the Malvaca Marchand thing, maybe a little bit of a kind of balance of the overall pack and like role type thing as well. A few weeks back the back row was excellent. Olivon's had a wicked couple of games, but a few weeks back we were talking about, do they lack a little bit of mobility, bit of dynamism? Maybe they don't, because they've got Malvaca who can do a lot of that grunt work and buy when he's there. And I wonder if it's it's sort of that role of the French hooker now, as you say. Maybe Malvaca set that expectation slightly, because it's only just over a year ago Marchand was starting, wasn't he? Primarily, and he got injured, and Malvaca, obviously, he was remarkable that game against South Africa, but no one had any issues with him being first choice then, and he was arguably like the form, him and Malcolm Marks and Sheehan, probably the form hookers in the world. Quite exalted company. I'm with you.
Also, his line-out stats are generally very, very good. Like, he's kind of high 90s normally. I think it was just a bit of a blip in this autumn. I think he's not the first hooker to be picked off by a New Zealand line-out. Think back to Jamie George getting done by Retallick and Whitelock like a number of times. They're pretty good there. And Tupou Vaa'i was a freak athlete, and as is Juan Martin Gonzalez.
Yeah, who I still think we've got. I don't know, that knock on that was given, I think is really harsh.
Yeah, no way. That's one of the most blatant penalty tries I think I've ever seen.
Apart from the fact the ball goes 3 yards backwards.
Oh, come on. He's trying to slap it forward.
Doesn't matter. It goes backwards.
Yeah, but it's forward out of the hand, mate.
And it bounces twice into touch. If he slapped it out, it would have gone miles out. And that was
his whole palm is facing.
It doesn't matter.
The other goal line.
It's Luke Pearce, who I must say is a fantastic referee, and I think is a great bloke. However, I think if you were a non-rugby watcher watching the first half of this game, and fair fucks to him for speaking in 2 languages, and being like, why am I hearing this guy so much?
Yeah,
like it is, and he's arguably too good at that kind of communications piece, I think, because I found it really, really grating, and that's not his fault because he's doing what's asked of him. But I was like, there's just so much of the ref here.
But I'd way rather have games with him than, especially like seeing the top 14 this weekend. They stop for absolutely, and some of the Autumn Nations games.
Like,
I watched one of the games with like people that don't. I think it must have been the New Zealand game. People like, it just stops the whole time. It's just
I'll give you that.
I quite like the idea of just going back to clear and obvious and just. I think it was in the England game, wasn't it? There was like
8 phases late beforehand,
but it was like the ball has gone forward like half a centimetre, and they've looked at it 5 times at least. On it, like if you're having to look at a knock on 5 times, play
what's the point? I'm completely with you.
Knock on's a knock on. It's obvious. Like there's an obvious if there's an advantage or if it's gone forward. But rant over.
No, I mean, and I think you're completely right, and he is undoubtedly, I think, the best at the moment. There's just quite a lot of him over the TV comms. Right, I've been intrigued. We said we'd sum up with a bit of a winners and losers from the autumn campaign for France. Do you want to? I'll let you kick off. Do you want to go? Should we go winners first?
I tried really hard not to pick obvious ones, and I actually struggled. And I also tried to not pick ones that I thought I second guessed what you picked. I'm going to go first with the most obvious one, and I'm going Louis Bielbarré because I was a little bit skeptical still of him, bearing in mind that 12 months ago he was kind of targeted in the World Cup quarterfinal, and he is just an absolute revelation. I think he's just he is a game changer.
Yeah,
as I said,
completely agree.
Amazing player. I saw a clip on Instagram today of someone filming like the post-match stuff immediately after the game from the New Zealand game, and he is just throwing up on the pitch. Like he's properly like emptying his guts on the pitch.
Oh, that
like literally as they're shaking hands.
Colom having the shits. There's clearly
Colom is like bent over, and then Bielbarré is like bent over next to him.
A couple of dodgy Pelforce going round.
Yeah.
Night before.
Anyway, right, who are you going for?
Paul Boudon.
I knew you'd go for him.
Awesome. Amazing against New Zealand. I think he's brought something. I just think he's now, for me, deserves a slightly longer crack in the starting back row. Aggressive, hits hard, and taken that from club through to international. And can't argue. I think he's been great.
Still young. I think he's in like 24 as well, isn't
he? Mm.
Shall I go next? Go boring again. I'm going to go Thomas Ramos. Just because I think not necessarily the debate is still going to rage on about 10, but this series just proved how instrumental he is to this, or how good a player he is at international rugby, how instrumental he is to this team, and how he's probably the second most important player behind Antoine Dupont now.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. On that note, my second is it's a little bit of a cheat because it's a sort of group as opposed to an individual player, but it is France's tried during this series fullbacks, Buros and Daret. I think off the back of Ramos' performances, it feels like, whether they'll find a way to get Jalibert in, I assume they'll want Entermat back in and then Ramos will slip back. But they have more than a safety net with Ramos. They have a high quality international 10 who kicks everything, seems to be able to control everything as he wants. And it opens up the opportunity I thought Buros was really did everything he needed to. Gives them a bit of aerial kind of not superiority, but aerial quality that perhaps they do lack a tiny bit. But then I thought Barre was really good at the weekend as well, and I think there's a little bit of a door open for both of them for a decent run that perhaps they weren't expecting. So I'd say they are winners in that regard.
I've got a slight left field shout on Leo Barre. I think he could be the answer at 12 going forward.
Interesting. Yeah, I see that
in a Geordie Barrett type way. He's massive. He's got a big boot. He plays ball.
He's got good hands.
He was a fly half. He played fly half in under 20s, I think. And when he goes for it, he goes for it. I think he just, he's going to be willing to. I actually still think Geordie Barrett's best position is still fullback, but as a 12, he just runs bloody hard and straight. And I think Barre could be similar type role.
Yeah.
I'd be definitely happy for him to be a riser or a winner or whatever you want to call it.
Go on. Final winner.
I will go for Charles Ollivon.
Yeah.
I was going to go for his Toulon teammate, Jean-Baptiste Cross, but I'm going to go Ollivon because he'd kind of fallen away and he was brilliant in the 2 games he played. And he's still fantastically good looking.
Yeah, he is, isn't he? He sort of gets better, I think.
Yeah.
Can't disagree with that at all. And then my final winner was either the Stadium Pyrotechnics technician, who was magnificent. I've gone a little bit left field here in that it's somebody who didn't actually play. And I think the one area that is a little bit of a concern is centre. And I think, although he's been injured, Nicolas Deportes' stock have risen through this, as is often the case when people miss out. And I don't think, I thought Fiku did all right, and is still a very high quality player, but I do feel like that if he can get fit again and get his face mended, I think he could bring something else and a bit of life that they do maybe need in the three quarters.
I thought you were going to go for La Petite Culotte, the big winner of this autumn, because they will have got lots of royalties for the amount of times La Goffa Lolita was being played during the games and after the games and before the games. Seems to have usurped Don Les Yeux d'Emily this autumn.
Right, losers quickly. Don't want to dwell on the negatives.
I've got a couple. I mean, I've got two obvious ones.
Go on.
Jalibert, Aldrit.
Yeah.
Jalibert, there's no way you can't. I mean, he got injured as well. That was actually quite sad, but yeah, there's no way you're painting that as not a loser. I've got one more, but I'll let you go.
I had Francois Cross. Missed the game. They beat New Zealand. And then I thought was the least effective of the back row. And I think the main reason I just think they've got such depth. And I think Aldrit as well, maybe to a lesser extent. But as we've seen with Olivon, you can go away from the side, come back in. I don't know, maybe it's just that time because he doesn't look quite as effective as he has done.
I was tempted to go Colom, but my third one is another player that didn't play, Roman Entamac.
Yeah.
Just because they've kind of proved that they can quite easily, in the same way they can cope without Jalibert, they can definitely also cope without Entamac now. And, as I've said before, do Toulouse go down the Dupont, Ramos with Kinghorn or Malia or Capozzo at 15. So interesting to see how it turns out.
The last time we go, another bloke who didn't play, but surely we're not going to see much more of poor old Dorian Aldegheri. Didn't make this squad, and I think it's sort of hung in there a little bit, hadn't he? And I think he is so far down the pecking order now, unfortunately for him. But there we go. I was struggling a little bit on the sort of losers because I don't think anyone there certainly haven't been, bar the sort of Jalibert gate. I think it's been a pretty successful time of it.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're looking good. Do we want to quickly? I don't know if you've got yours noted out. Who did France play first game?
Wales. Friday, 31st of January.
Goodness me. January Six Nations. That feels a bit odd.
Yeah, that's early. Bit like our November Christmas holiday.
Yeah, something in the air. Go on, take me through what you're gonna do, and then I'll finish with my rogue things just to ruffle your feathers a bit.
So I've done it as kind of relatively realistic. Like I haven't just chucked in guides on that sog bait.
Is this what you think, or what you would like, or a bit of
what
both?
I think a bit of a hybrid of the two, basically.
Okay.
What I would like with a bit of realism.
Yeah.
So I've got Gross as loose head brackets, Cyril Bai if he's fit.
Yeah.
Malvaca at hooker, Antonio tight head, Flamont Miafu, Jelonch, Cross, Olivon, Dupont, Ramos, Murfana Fiku, BLBRA, Peno, Barre, and then my bench is Marchand, Woody, or Gross, depending on if Bai's fit, Tatafu, Guillard, Boudon, Lagarek. 22 shirt, I have Mathieu Jalibert.
Nice.
23, I've gone Gaeton because I completely forgot about Nicolas Deporteur.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I'm not a million miles away from you there. I think I would have, as you probably guess, I'd probably go Boudon over Cross.
Yeah.
In the back row. I don't think it's going to happen.
Would you keep Jelonch?
Yes, I would.
Yeah.
Assuming he's playing. No.
Cool.
I would go. I think if they can reconcile, I would love to see Mathieu Jalibert starting. So I'll put him at 10 in an all pretty much Bordeaux backline, but with Ramos slotting back into 15. And then, Marshall and Wardy, Tafu. I kept Guillard in. I thought he had a pretty good time of it. I've also gone assuming a 6-2 bench here.
Okay.
So assuming Posolo Tuolangi is going to be injured, it would probably be Aldrit. The other guy I really like, who's sniffing around, who in that kind of 4-6 role, it's like, would Wacky come back in? Probably not at the moment. It's Josh Brennan. I'd really like to see.
Bosch Tom.
I think I like Bosch Tom. I've got Gazoth. Well, I'll come back to that in a minute. I've got LeGarrette and then Fiku in the 23 jersey. And then I've got my sort of back row, my last back row slot. It would be Gazzotti, but a guy who we love, who we haven't spoken about, and I'd love to see him back in there, is Sekou Makalu. There's no way he can't be doing a job in that 21 jersey. Like, earlier today, I was like, I'm missing a bit of height. Who could play out on the wing? Injury. It's like Makalu, get him back. The campaign starts now.
Yeah, right. We need to come up with a name like the Attisog Bays. We need a fan club.
Mac, yeah. Hashtag Mac is back. Let's get him in. Alrighty, Autumn International's done. Back in just a sec to cover.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader. Like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
Life is made up of many gorgeous moments. Cherish them all, big and small, with Blue Nile. Whether it's for yourself or a loved one, Blue Nile's unrivaled selection of expertly crafted fine jewelry and statement pieces help make all your moments sparkle. Blue Nile's experts are on hand to guide you, and their diamond guarantee ensures you get the highest quality at the best price. Celebrate a life well lived in the most radiant way and save up to 30% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
The top 14. Top 14 was back after a short hiatus. It kicked off Saturday as normal. Saturday, whatever it is, 1:30 UK time. Toulon Bayonne. Toulon march on at home despite my extremely ropey bet that Bayonne might do them away down at the Mayol. Rob, you caught a decent chunk of this?
Yeah, well, at one point it looked like they're going all right, with Joris Sagon scoring all 16 points to get back to 17-16. And then, yeah, they just ran away with it. Toulon were absolutely brilliant. Bayonne were not their best. Toulon got off to an absolute flyer. They could or should have been off to an even more of a flyer with Gael Drehan, who did end up scoring a hat-trick in 66 minutes, was somehow, and I was talking about referees just interfering and fiddling over minute things. There was a supposed forward pass from Jeremy Sanzel, who actually had a very good game, a rare, very good game, Jeremy Sanzel. A long, wide ball over the top to Gael Drehan that was definitely flat and went forward with momentum, that was ruled forward, that denied Gael Drehan a 17.5-minute hat-trick, which would have been phenomenal. I think I said in the preview that I'm quite a big fan of like some of the fringe players at Toulon, and I kind of realised, oh crap, hence potentially that means some people might interpret that as someone like Sanzel. But I kind of meant like Doimon at the back, Drehan in particular, a young guy, but he's rapid, really talented winger, and another guy who was brilliant in this game and seems a pretty accomplished player is Enzo Hervé, who just seems, he kicks his goals. A couple of lovely touches for the first two Drehan tries, like proper running at the line and then flicking out the back. And the second one was just looks up and he sees the space and just dabs it over the top, gentle crossfield kick. I thought he was excellent as well. The front rows, I know we had a little joke at his expense last week in terms of self-praise, but Carl Sinclair was brilliant again. Danny Priso is fantastic, and Bobby New, like they just basically every ruck, there is one of those three in it, like trying to disrupt ball, having made the tackle, or just somewhere around it. Like they're just involved in so much. Ribbons is brilliant. We know that. Second half, they were completely dominant. There was a phase of the game where they were going to completely run away with it and kind of rack up like 50 or 60 again, like they did in San Sebastian last year. Giovanni Abelkufner was brilliant both sides of the ball. There was an interesting bit in this game, and I don't know what to make of it. And I did film it, but it doesn't seem to have caused much stir. So it's it's a scrum on the Bayonne 5 meter line, and Baptiste Serin is waiting to put it in. And I think Abelkufner either is just like fiddling around with Serin's boot, or he actually undoes his shoelace.
Nice.
And he kind of initially flicks off the hand with his foot, and then Abelkufner puts his hand down to kind of steady himself because he's scrummaging. Serin just properly stamps on his foot, and then they reset, and you're expecting Abelkufner to be rubbing his hand or something. Absolutely nothing. And that's his right hand. His left hand is bandaged, completely bandaged, and he's not even flinched. It's astonishing. But Serin is then complaining to the touch judge about. It's hang on, mate, you've just stamped on his hand. But I think he then did have to redo his shoelace up, so maybe Abelkufner did get him. But
that's such an old-fashioned, snivelling little French 9 thing to do, isn't it?
Just complain, yeah.
Love it.
On Enzo Hervé, before we move, the star of this game was either Enzo Hervé or Gael Dram on the wing, but I've been mulling this over quite a number of weeks. Enzo Hervé looks like a cross between Cobus Reinach and Louis Carbonell. However, there is potentially also Deco, former Portuguese midfielder, or Dimitri Yashvili in there. There's just so many people that he could be a combination of, lookalikes wise. But there's I've put a few out there. It's a combination of some of those four.
Quite like the Yashvili shout. There's a little bit of Paul Grau going on there as well.
Yeah, I'd say that, but then that's Carbonell. I think there's Carbonell in there.
Interesting.
It's that kind of it's that slightly kind of teddy bear shaped
maybe,
face, isn't it?
Maybe we need to, I don't know, create a sort of grid that merge you sort of can move them in the faces, and you can work out a color palette, a face palette, until we find the exact match. It's 30% Deco, 20% Yashvili. Yeah.
And that's me done on that game.
Nice. No, insight as ever. The other, that was the early kickoff, wasn't it? But the big shock was Clermont, who, correct me if I'm wrong, had conceded more points away from home than anyone. Haven't won a game away since you went to watch them in the sun in Catalonia.
Early May, yeah. I think they have conceded more points than Van away.
Yeah,
but their issue was that they had scored 43 points in 4 away games so far this season,
and
which is astonishing. Before this game, so they hadn't scored a single point, no losing bonus points, and averaging under 11 points per away game is pretty dire.
Not ideal. But yeah, they won 30-22 at the Stade de Gerland, which is increasingly looking like less of the fortress it was last year, having been run over by Bayonne a few weeks back. Lyon had a really good start to the year and have just, they've just paled away a bit.
Mate.
Moala was wicked in this game, as he often is for Clermont.
He's 1 game in 3, doesn't he? And he's just unbelievable for about half, and then gets injured again. He's so good though.
He's an exceptional player. For Lyon, I mean, on the losing side, and we speak about him loads because he's brilliant, but Quiyu was absolutely unbelievable. 2 brilliant tries, 1 an awesome snipe, and then the delightful Dupont-esque little crossfield kick off the back of the ruck, which was beautiful. And he got a yellow card as well. So
nice.
Really, really good work. Good all-round performance from him. My boys, Castres Olympique, 28-24 over the might of La Rochelle.
Doesn't tell the full story, that
doesn't tell the full story. They were 28-6 up at half time and looking fairly comfortable, to put it mildly. LeBrun was playing really nicely. Actually watched a decent bit of this. And then the second half, in spite of Cunatellia coming off the bench and getting a red card within a minute and a half, which was a really good effort from him. They managed. Borderline.
I thought it was kind of.
I'm with you. I thought it was. I mean, he's a big, big man.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't want to have taken the hit.
I think he's a little bit unlucky. He's so massive. Like, I guess
it took a lot of angles to prove that there was. It took a lot of angles to prove there was head contact, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to get a bit lower, isn't he? But it was a little bit harsh. Not harsh, a little bit. In the grand scheme of some of those head-on-head ones, it certainly looked less blatant than the Mayafi one against Argentina, which they didn't check. But we'll move on. Cass basically did everything they could to lose this in like the last 10 minutes. Went down to 13
Some real comedy yellows, weren't there?
Comedy yellows. The last cut, the play before the last La Rochelle try was just guys like giving up in terms of trying to get back on side. It was like there could have been way more yellow cards. It was spectacular stuff, and you could see Jeremy Davison on the side look like he was about to explode at one point because it would have been the capitulation to end them all. But fortunately, just to the many miles to the northwest.
Can I just before we move on? Did you see, and you would have done if you saw the game, who was playing 7 for La Rochelle?
I don't know if I did. Who was it?
Jonathan Dante.
Was he?
Yeah.
I saw he was playing. I obviously didn't see the back of his shirt. That's amazing.
And what was also amazing is that first scrum, he like slides back. He hasn't got enough grip, and Cass score a try about 10 minutes, and there's a boot change, which I feel like is a real nice cliche of like a back moving into the forwards, you know, get the longer studs on.
It's
like when Don Armand put his scrum cap on to go into the second row. It was like I just thought that was I mean, him playing 7 was quite cool. I think the fact that he had to do a boot change to put the longer studs on was even cooler. Just I love rugby cliches like that.
Brought the ankle high miters out of retirement. The Lavani Bottier style apprenticeship from centre to back.
Yeah, he was pretty good.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Because he is very good over the ball.
But before you quite rightly mentioned Jonathan Dante's moonlighting in the back row there, if Cass tried to shoot themselves in the foot, then poor old Van took whatever weapon that was, dusted it down, and just blew their feet off from point blank range. This was like, we're gonna preface this by saying we've seen probably more in the last 2 or 3 seasons these big swings and big comebacks because teams aren't scared anymore. They play so much rugby, like it can click, right? But this wasn't just that. And so Van, if you haven't seen it, I'm sure you have, like Van go 29-0 up in the first half and are beyond dominant. Like they look
one-way traffic.
Like such a well-organised, so clinical. Ruru was great. Ryassi was everywhere. Ridiculous offload if you haven't seen it. Like proper X-rated stuff. Francis Saili was amazing.
Yeah,
he was just like picking holes left, right, and centre. They then concede what was a really lovely work try. Rohan Janssen from Van Rensburg just before half time, 29-7.
And Tapoy
goes through the gap. Was it Tapoy who scored it?
Yeah, that one
was it.
Tapoy. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm mistaken. Lovely try.
There was a little mini drive-by from Robbie Knock on Ben Tapoy's pace at the age of like 36 or whatever he is. He's getting on a bit now. But yeah,
Robbie Knott was absolutely living the dream as well during this. He was loving it. The Stade de France was like above and beyond. It sounds like the place was about to explode. And then it just went downhill at the most extraordinary rate of knots. So restart, they drop the ball from the restart immediately after half time, score 2 minutes later. Bordeaux then go at the other end and score. They then conspire to concede a penalty try, but in the build-up to the penalty try, get 2 yellow cards for high tackles. So 7 points and 2 men in the bin. They then concede another try, and Kitoni Kawakamita decides to drop in a sneaky little shoulder on Kazo as he goes over, and they concede a penalty from the restart. And it's just like, just everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. 79th minute, like the place is quiet. Is it Lafarge, isn't it? The 10 who kicked all right, gets a pretty easy kick to at least get them a bonus point and give them one shot at maybe trying to go up the other end and scoring, and just honks it to the left of the post. It's just... Oh, and Mathieu Jalabert went off after 9 minutes as well for Bordeaux. So this is Jalabert.
And he was done after like minute 1 as well. Like, he got clipped by Mathieu Vinopola and he was basically limping from that point.
It's basically not played.
Yeah.
It's just speechless. It's like, it truly is a meltdown, unfortunately, for Van. I don't know what more I can say.
So I didn't quite see the full extent of it in the second half. I think I got up to about 50 minutes and then I was kind of watching it sound off while catching up on Strictly. More important things to do on a Saturday night. But I think the damage was done at 50 minutes. Like, they conceded 3 tries in 8 minutes. So they conceded 19 points in 8 minutes in either side of half time. And I think whatever goes on after that with the yellow cards and the penalties and missing kicks was kind of just, the ship had sailed at that point. The kind of more cliches, the horse had bolted, whatever you want to, the momentum was entirely back with Bordeaux by the time, arguably by the try at the beginning of the second half, but definitely by the time Retier sneaks over, scurries his way over. Because by that point you've had massive carries from Rohan Jansi van Rensburg and Swinton, and I think Bosch Tom's involved as well. They were just, in the same way that it was one-way traffic in the first half, that first like 5-10 minutes of the second half was, they couldn't live with Bordeaux at all. It's a kind of classic, I'd love to know, more cliches, I'd love to know what Yannick Bruce said at half time, or some of those guys completely changed the game. But they did. Like, they just had a bit of momentum. They had something to cling on to, didn't they? With that try right on half time, and then saw the glimmer of light and went for it.
Yeah. And they were brilliant. Like they say, they completely controlled it. Swinton was amazing off the bench. Like, looked a bit men v boys at times.
He looks angry.
And Rensburg was awesome. Kazo, very good. Bosch Tom was great. All the guys you mentioned there, I think, don't get me wrong, like Bordeaux were superb and thoroughly good value for it. But when you do things like concede 2 yellow cards and a penalty try within one play, and then not often you see the penalty from the restart, it's horrible. And there's some iffy reffing in. Actually, Van did ride out the period when they had 30 men pretty well. I think they only conceded a try or like a penalty. But Spitzer was a little bit ungracious in his appraisal after the game. It was a bit of an unloading on the referee, which I think felt like a guy who not under pressure, because I think he's re-signed, isn't he? And he's incredibly well loved and respected, and completely rightly so. But he was pretty forceful. Not quite Mignoni down on the pitch, clipboard out the ground, but a little bit not a great reaction, I wouldn't say, when you add up all those mistakes. He also, I don't know if he does all the time, there's also a big sailing connection with Van and Brittany. He wears a Musto cap.
I saw this and I didn't know whether to comment on it, because being from the Isle of Wight, you see quite a lot of Musto caps, and I just don't know whether that's like I don't know. I don't know whether other people would notice that sort of thing, but yeah, I did spot that.
Yeah, it's an interesting touch.
It's more that I'm surprised he's allowed to wear a non-club issue cap.
I think he's probably just does what he likes, so doesn't he? He's sort of the king.
Yeah.
Van played some fabulous rugby. If they can do that again at points in the season, they might hang on in there. But a couple of home defeats that are real sucker punches for them. And they're still bottom. They'd hung on to that first half performance. Rob, your boys Poe could have been at the foot. They're now in the barrage place after getting fairly roundly beaten 33 away at Montpellier, who are looking all right. What's your
it was 16-3 with 5 or 6
minutes
to go.
left or so. Yeah.
So it's the scoreline, but from what I can tell, the scoreline doesn't really flatter Montpellier too much. I think the thing that worried me about this game from a Poe perspective was that they actually had a few players back. Like, they have had a lot of injuries, and we had kind of, I don't know, Kapoku played and Zegur was back playing, and Rhys Hewitt off the bench, who's a bit of a stalwart, certainly was last year. There was a few signs of a few more players being available. It didn't look the weakest squad, but it does look like a weak squad. Like, I think you said it early on when we did our league predictions. Poe aren't necessarily bad. They have been overtaken by so many clubs. Right now, especially without Atisogbe and Gaeton, they really lack a bit of star quality. Like, Gorgadza cannot come back soon enough because he is just such a key cog for them. I can't overstate it. I also think, I said this at the time, but like, their recruitment in the front row, they needed some props, and I'm not convinced they got good ones. Like, I was pretty critical of your man Kalashvili when he was at Bordeaux. He got cooked in a couple of big games, didn't he? If you look at, with the greatest respect, English tight heads, you'd rather have Sinclair or Collier than Harry Williams, or you'd have Brooksy as well. Yeah, they haven't strengthened well enough, and I think the thing that, because they got absolutely marmalised in the scrums in this, and Montpellier have had a good scrum. That's been one of their real good key weapons this year, especially with the criminals at tight head, who have been pretty good. Hung Patan's been really good, to be fair, and they just got marmalised in this game, and they looked unfit, or like the discipline. They conceded 17 penalties, and that is, it's very easy to say, it's discipline, they're all disciplined, but I think that's just fitness and just like not being able to live with the physicality. Like, there was stuff like Collie just like sniped around the fringe and it had a bit of a gap, and like Kamara got through a gap in like the middle of a ruck. It's just guys just not being switched on from tiredness.
Yeah, that's classy though when you're under pressure, right? Like, everyone always says defense, big periods of defense take it out of you more than anything else. And if you're constantly under pressure and you're struggling to get footholds in games, it's going to tell eventually, particularly against a big, heavy set of boys like Montpellier.
Yeah,
it's a strange one, isn't it? Because Poe have, they have the ability to beat good sides, but I can't see where an away win comes from them at the moment anywhere. Have they won away from home this year? I don't think they have. And you're only 4 points ahead of Van at the moment. That's slightly worrying given a good start to the year, but we'll see. In spite of that, you say Gorgadza comes back. It doesn't take much to. He's sort of Herculean for them, isn't he? They have got quality. Put Gaeton and Atisogbe back in that back line, and
Manu as well. If you've got him rushing it over the gain line, like.
Is Jack Maddox playing this game?
Jack Maddox did play. Yeah,
he did play.
He's a big physical bloke, isn't he?
Yeah.
But you mentioned Spitzer not being under pressure. I'd be amazed. I haven't seen anything. I'd be amazed if Sebastian Picarones is under pressure. He's done such a good job. He was brilliant with the under-20s, obviously, a few years back now. But he's clearly a really good coach. Clearly, really good.
Yeah.
I think think back to Steve Cummins when he came on, kind of talking about how he is really good working with young players, and there is a switch from Poe to kind of promote young players, and they do still have lots of good young guys coming through. So it's just whether they can get enough from the more experience. Like, can Luke Whitelock come back as well? Like, that's a hell of a lot of experience as well.
Yeah, and I think the Picker owners is almost not it hasn't been said to excuse any sort of short-term shortcomings, but he has seen it and flagged it as a little bit of a project, right, and something a bit longer term for Poe. Yeah. And they are a young side, so I'm sure they'll be back and you'll be cheering them on, and the smile will return, Rob. Final game of the weekend was the Paris Derby.
We've missed the
Oh, sorry.
But they hammered them.
We did put that on our list as the one game we genuinely weren't going to touch on because they absolutely thumped. He did. He also was involved in a try where the bouncer, I don't know if you saw this, he just huffed up like a relatively poor up and under that bounced backwards about 20 yards into his hand, got the offload away, which was then like half intercepted by the Perpignan defender who basically headed it back over the dead ball line for Toulouse to score. It was like, maybe that's the Midas touch of Roman Entomac that Fabien Gaultier rates so highly. But this was incredibly one way. In spite of Toulouse missing quite a few guys.
Anthony Gelonche played second row.
Yes, he did.
And they have managed to find a fifth international fullback.
Yes, the Belgian lads.
Matthias Rameau has played for Belgium.
That is
21-year-old fullback.
It's quite cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Only internationals allowed at 15 for Toulouse. You're right, that wasn't Paris Derby, was not the last game of the weekend. Toulouse soundly beat USAP, and it looked very similar. A little bit of turd polishing on the scoreline from Racing at the end of this, because Stade de France were 43 up after an hour in this game, which is
it was so one-sided.
Yeah,
it wasn't a particularly eventful game. Like, it was quite crap or boring or uneventful for quite a lot of it, and then there was just interspersed like these pockets of 5 minutes where loads of stuff happened. I've come up with a nickname for Macalou fans. We're going to be the Macalunatics.
Yeah, nice. I like that.
Yeah, he was great when he came off the bench. Obviously, he was. We love him. We're Macalunatics.
He's class. Joe Jonas was awesome in this game. 15, a guy I know we both really rate. Maybe Leo Barry's going to have to find somewhere else. Maybe 12. Yeah, with Jeremy Ward just outside him. Jonas was awesome. Yeah, he did. There were a couple of really nice tries in this. The Marchant try was very nicely worked, and so was Jeremy Ward's try just before half time. And I'd go off the bench we've spoken about a bit this year as well. He was very good for Racing when he came on, was Diamani.
Yeah.
Who sort of dragged it away from being a real hammering, but they were missing a few Racing.
Kaitu'u as well has been pretty good this year for a bloke who's come in short term.
Yeah, he has been good. Yeah, had his troubles throwing, isn't he, a little bit, but he's powerful, really powerful guy.
He probably dragged 3 people over the line. I think the best player in this game was Brad Webber. He was absolutely sensational. There's that try where he breaks free straight from the kickoff around the 40-minute mark is all about him. He just spots a gap and he shows a bit of pace. There's a lovely little hitch kick in there as well. But that combo with him and Carbonell now looks like it's clicking. They were trying so many things in attack. They actually played some pretty good rugby at times. It was quite cool to watch. Dakawanga looks sick as well.
Yeah, he's just such a legend, isn't he? That rounds it up. There was no Pro Day but we do have a full programme of domestic rugby this weekend. Rob, give me your highlights. Which fixtures are we looking forward to most?
Top 14, mate. Have you seen the game? It's a big one.
Go on.
Pau host Lyon.
Ooh.
So Lyon are in 12th on 18 points. Pau are in 13th on 15 points. Both teams on the slide. That is quite a key game, you'd have to think.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the look of that. I think the early one, Racing Toulouse, could be interesting. Racing, if they get a few of their guys back, but I don't know if they'll be rested. Toulouse maybe the same, but are they
going to get pumped, mate? They were rubbish. I know they didn't have Legarec and Tuisova, but they were rubbish.
No, we've said this too many times. They're not as bad as we think. They were crap this weekend, but there's enough quality if they get their players back.
Yeah, because
to be at the very least big.
Entomac and Aki and Delebe and Labelle are going to be rubbish on a plastic pitch, aren't they?
Well, we'll see, won't we? We'll see. You only plump for away wins when they seem to be as good as done when it's the Galacticos. So yeah, we'll see. I think it's not a stellar round of fixtures that for me. Whereas Pro Day the one I do really like the look of.
Thursday night, surely.
Brive Montauban is Thursday night, right?
Third versus second.
Yeah, that could be good. Although I feel like Brive at home will have way too much. Yeah. What I do like the look of, just purely for sort of old time nostalgia, high quality sides of yesteryear, is Béziers Argennes. Although I think Béziers at home will probably walk it. But we shall see.
Third and fourth most successful clubs in France.
There you go. And then Provence Nice, derby-ish to an extent.
Yeah, a little bit.
We'll call it the sort of Provençal Niçoise derby. All right, let's leave it there. We'll come back and finish with a couple of Petit-Fours. Rob, what has been keeping you interested? What's been helping you digest your food? What's the sweeteners been this week?
The big one, we've mentioned him already, and how key he is to my boys. Becca Gulgadze is extended at Po till 2028, which is just huge news. Did you see the snowball fight at the Stade de France at France training?
Yes, it looked great.
It looked great with the caption of "the CM did not survive," which took me a while to work out what the CM was until you get to the end of the video and Paul Boudon from about a metre away, like absolutely wellies the biggest snowball you'll ever see out of the camera. CM, the cameraman, did not survive. I just want to touch on France Sevens. So they've named a list of Objectif 2028. So they've got a load of centrally contracted players who are some of the names from the Olympics. Then from what I can work out, they've got a number of players that are playing in the top 14 that they will kind of use as their players that they want to earmark and get playing sevens quite a lot. And then they've got 5 young players under the Convention du Formation, which I think is kind of like an academy type thing where they are still contracted to clubs, but also they're going to play. They're kind of contracted to the France Sevens. Few names to pick out from that. So obviously you've got Ryan Rabage, Jefferson Lee Joseph, guys that played in Andy Timo, guys that played in the World Cup. No, Aaron Grandidier didn't make it, which is, I can't work that one out.
Okay.
But other names, Mateo Garcia is on that list.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Ethan Dumortier, who had a bit of a stint in sevens. Dimitri Delebe, Toulouse, former Blognac man, I think. Yeron Fall at Clermont, he's rapid. Esteban Capilla, the young back rower at Bayonne, who's been really impressive. And then a player that we've been on the lookout for quite a lot this season, which we haven't seen, Joe Quere Caraba is in that list.
Oh, nice.
So I don't think he's played at all for Toulon.
No.
Maybe his future lies in sevens.
He could be a hell of a sevens player.
I just want to see him take on him versus Castro Ferreira in a game, which is amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, he's a real talent. And this is obviously off the back of, it was the World Rugby Awards last night. And perhaps unsurprisingly, Antoine Dupont won men's World Sevens Player of the Year.
No way.
And much to the chagrin of a small and fervent section of South African rugby fans on social media, Jérôme Daret, the French Sevens coach, won the Coach of the Year, which is pretty cool as well. And Nolan Legarec won Try of the Year for the team effort and against England in Lyon, which is a fantastic try. But he gets to go and collect the award in Monaco, looking like James Bond for running one in from about 10 meters, which I think is pretty cool.
No French players in the World Dream Team of the Year.
No.
Which I thought was harsh on... I thought the most likely was probably Ramos or Cross.
Yeah.
But you don't like Francois Cross all of a sudden, so...
I don't like him.
Given that Damien McKenzie got in there at 10, I think Ramos is a better option.
Yeah, given he sort of I think he was close to the most points ever in a Six Nations, wasn't he, as well? Another little bit of transfer stuff saw today. Bayonne, we've got Herschel Janches going to them next year.
He's been rumoured with basically every club in France as well.
Well, they've secured his signature. And then probably the best thing I saw in the week a couple of days ago actually was, a few weeks back, maybe a little bit longer, they had the Midi Olympique Oscars.
Yeah.
And they took the Oscars Roadshow out, and I think they're going to a few clubs. So they went to Soyer-Angoulême, and they awarded a middle Oscar to Rosbiff Rugby friend of the podcast, Ben Botica.
I couldn't work out what was going on with that. Who collected like I think it's sort of a career achievement award. Oh, nice.
He's just announced a prolongation, an extension of his contract. And him and his brother Jacob got up on stage and did a haka for the event, which was very cool. Congratulations to Ben Botica. That's delightful news to come out of the Charente in the week.
Big news for your boys, Rich, that was announced in the Musée Goya. Did you see this? Just him sat in front of a massive painting. But Jack Goodhue is extended to 2027.
Oh, I didn't see that. That is great news.
I went down a rabbit hole trying to work out what the painting was, and it turns out it's by an anonymous artist, which was 10 minutes of my life I'm not going to get back.
Amazing.
But till 2027, I wonder if he'll sign a contract back in New Zealand after that to try and get himself in
the World Cup.
Yeah, I wonder if that's... He doesn't. He seems to, every time I watch him, he's getting absolutely hammered by someone. Like, he just seems to get belted in every single game.
He's robust.
Did you see the top 14 sides in emoji form that they put on?
Yeah, that was some lazy content, that wasn't it? Just like, was it Montpellier? It was a blue spot.
Yeah. I baited them with that, and then obviously that came back to bite me. But yeah,
that will learn you.
We can talk about European kits next week because Europe's back.
Europe's back.
A few tasty ones around.
Little European special. There are some good ones. Toulon is very naughty. Well, let's do that next week. Before we get cut off. Alrighty, we've been Rosbiff Rugby. You can follow us on Rob X, Instagram,
TikTok, Threads, YouTube.
Give us a follow, like, subscribe.
At Rosbiff Rugby on all of those.
Enjoy your weeks. Enjoy it. Pro Day Dare coming back. Top 14s back in full swing ahead of the European Cup seasons. I've been Rich. That's been Rob. We've been the Rosbiff Rugby podcast, and we will see you very soon. Au revoir.
Au revoir.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
O'Reilly. Check engine light on? Take the guesswork out of your check engine light with O'Reilly Veriscan. It's free and provides a report with solutions based on over 650 million vehicle scans verified by ASE certified master technicians. And if you need help, we can recommend a shop for you. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.